Imagine a boxer who never breaks a sweat on camera. Cold eyes. Perfect technique. Every punch calculated like a chess move. Now imagine a fighter sprinting up a frozen mountain at dawn, dragging a 100-pound tire, alone, in silence, because that's just Tuesday. Two systems, one built in laboratories, one built in survival. Both created champions, but only one was designed to break you before the fight even started. The Soviet Union engineered boxing like they engineered space rockets. Precision, science, perfection. Dagestan? They just asked one question. How do we make a man unbreakable? What you're about to discover will flip everything you thought you knew about combat training. Because one system taught fighters to think, the other taught them they had no choice but to win. This isn't about who's better. This is about understanding why a Soviet boxer moves like water and why a Dagestani fighter feels like walking into a wall that never stops coming. Drop your country in the comments right now. Subscribe, because in the next 20 minutes, you're going to see two worlds collide, and when it's over, you'll never watch a fight the same way again. The Soviet boxing machine didn't ask for permission to exist. It was born from revolution and war. After 1917, the Kremlin had a problem. They needed soldiers who could think under pressure, absorb punishment, and execute with ice-cold precision. Boxing wasn't entertainment, it was military science. By the 1,950 seconds, Soviet boxers were collecting Olympic gold like it was routine. Valery Popenchenko, Boris Lagutin. Legends built in state-funded facilities where every movement was studied, documented, perfected. Coaches treated boxing like engineering. They analyzed punch angles. They measured kinetic energy transfer. They dissected footwork frame by frame. The system was clinical, ruthless, effective. Every Soviet boxer learned the same fundamentals: relaxed punching, pendulum footwork, volume combinations, lead hand control, cold blood under pressure. It was a formula, and it worked. The Soviet Union turned boxing into a production line of technical excellence. Now shift east, past Moscow, past the industrial cities, into the mountains. Dagestan, a republic in Russia's North Caucasus, where life was harder, colder, and resources were scarce. No state funding here, no Olympic training centers, just villages where wrestling was survival. Boys learned to grapple before they learned to read, not because someone told them to, because that's what men did. You wrestled to prove yourself, to honor your family, to earn respect. The training wasn't in gyms, it was in courtyards, on rocky ground, in freezing rivers. Nobody was studying angles or measuring force, they were just fighting. Where Soviet boxing asked, "How do we perfect technique?" Dagestan asked, "How do we build men who don't quit?" One system was a laboratory, the other was a forge. One produced technical artists, the other produced warriors, who made you feel their presence before they even touched you. Both systems worked, but their paths, completely different. Soviet boxing operated on one principle that Western fighters couldn't wrap their heads around: relaxation equals power. While American and European boxers tightened their fists and tensed their shoulders, Soviet fighters learned to punch like a whip, loose, fast, devastating. Their coaches drilled this obsessively. Do not press your fist to your chin. Let it hang free. Clench only at impact. The result? Knockouts that looked effortless. Punches that seemed lazy but dropped opponents like they'd been shot. This was the kinetic chain in action. Feet rotate, hips turn, core engages, arm extends. Every muscle fires in perfect sequence, transferring energy from the ground straight through the target. No wasted motion, no wasted energy, just pure mechanical efficiency. Then there was the footwork, the pendulum step. Soviet boxers never stood still. They bounced in and out, constantly shifting weight, creating rhythm. This wasn't flashy movement for show. It was functional warfare. The pendulum disguised intention. Opponents couldn't time them because they were never static. And when they attacked, that momentum transferred directly into punching power. Volume punching followed naturally. Soviet boxers didn't throw single shots. They threw combinations. 3 punches, 4, 5, rapid succession. The pendulum step blended perfectly with offensive rhythm. Enter with punches, exit safely, repeat, like waves crashing on a shore. Relentless, precise, exhausting to defend. The lead hand became a weapon of control, extended forward like a barrier, a rangefinder, a blind spot creator. From this position, the jab was lightning fast, less telegraphed, reaching targets before opponents saw it coming. That same lead hand kept opponents at distance, controlled space, dictated pace. But here's what really separated Soviet boxers from everyone else. Cold blood. No emotion, no rage, no frustration, just calculation. They were taught to control their face, control their breath, control their mind, never show weakness. Never give opponents psychological ammunition. When they got hurt, you couldn't tell. When they were tired, you wouldn't know. That poker face concealed everything. The Soviet system didn't build brawlers who relied on toughness and heart. It built tacticians who thought 3 moves ahead. Fighters who made you feel like you were fighting a machine. Calm, clinical, unstoppable. That was the Soviet way. Science applied to violence. Dagestani training has no secrets, no magic formulas, no hidden techniques. It's built on 3 things: wrestling, conditioning, culture. Boys start young, 5 years old, 6. They don't train because they dream of fame. They train because wrestling is what men do in Dagestan. It's family honor, community respect, identity. This isn't optional. This is who you are. The training itself is brutally simple. Wrestling drills, takedown repetition, positional control, hours on the mat, every single day. No music playing in the background, no hype videos. No motivational speeches, just work. Silent, brutal, unforgiving work. The goal isn't learning fancy techniques. It's making the fundamentals instinctive. When you've drilled a single leg takedown 10,000 times, you don't think about it in a fight. You just do it. Your body knows. Your mind is free to strategize. Conditioning is constant and harsh. Morning runs on steep mountain trails, sprinting uphill at altitude where the air is thin and every breath burns. Push-ups in freezing weather, rope climbs until your hands bleed. Training with rocks, lifting them, carrying them, rotating them overhead. No fancy gym equipment. The mountains provide everything you need. And then there's the culture. This is what most people don't understand. In Dagestan, quitting isn't an option that exists. You don't train when you feel motivated. You train because it's your duty. You represent your father, your coach, your village. Every time you step on the mat, you're carrying their name. Failure isn't just personal embarrassment, it's collective shame. This creates pressure that would crush most athletes. But in the Dagestani system, that pressure becomes fuel. It becomes purpose. This is why Dagestani fighters are so mentally durable. They've been conditioned since childhood to operate when uncomfortable, to push when exhausted, to continue when everything screams stop. Discipline over motivation, consistency over intensity, day after day after day. There's no secret sauce, no hidden training method, just relentless, simple, daily work driven by something bigger than yourself. That's the Dagestani way. And it produces fighters who feel different, heavier, like fighting against inevitability. Soviet boxers trained in controlled environments. Indoor gyms with regulated temperatures, structured roadwork on predictable roads, strength training using barbells, dumbbells, medicine balls. Their conditioning was scientific, calculated heart rate zones, planned recovery periods, periodized training blocks designed months in advance. Roadwork built aerobic base, sprints developed explosive power, core work focused on rotational strength for punching, neck training prevented knockouts. Every element had a purpose, backed by research and coaching experience. Shadowboxing drilled pure technique. Heavy bags built power, speed bags developed rhythm, double-end bags sharpened timing and accuracy. Everything was measured, tracked, optimized. The Soviet approach treated the body like a machine that could be tuned for peak performance. Now look at Dagestan, completely different world. Roadwork happens on mountain trails at high altitude in freezing conditions. There's no climate control, no perfect running surface, just steep, rocky paths that force your body to adapt to chaos. Sprinting uphill with less oxygen builds cardiovascular endurance that makes sea-level competition feel easy. Your lungs adapt, your heart strengthens, your legs become pistons. Wrestling on uneven, rocky ground develops balance and coordination no flat gym floor can replicate. Every step requires adjustment, every movement demands control. This builds stabilizer muscles and body awareness that make Dagestani fighters nearly impossible to off-balance in the cage. Then there's rock training, lifting and rotating heavy, irregular stones. Unlike barbells that balance perfectly, rocks shift and resist unpredictably. This forces your entire body to work as one unit. You can't muscle a rock, you have to coordinate. Full body power. Functional strength that translates directly to grappling. Bodyweight exercises dominate. Push-ups, dips, rope climbs, all performed outdoors in harsh weather. Cold exposure forces your body to work harder just to maintain performance. This builds resilience alongside strength, mental toughness through physical suffering. The Soviet approach builds precision athletes, boxers who execute technique flawlessly under controlled conditions, peak performance in optimal environments. The Dagestani approach builds survival athletes, fighters who perform when everything is wrong. When they're tired, cold, uncomfortable, under pressure. Chaos doesn't faze them because chaos is where they train. Soviet conditioning asks, how do we optimize each system? Dagestani conditioning asks, how do we make this man unbreakable? Both work, both produce elite fighters. But they produce different types of warriors. One thrives on control, the other thrives despite losing it. Soviet boxers were specialists. Their entire existence centered on perfecting the art of boxing. Nothing else mattered. Mitt work with coaches was a daily ritual, developing timing, accuracy, combination fluency. Every session had purpose. Pad work emphasized rhythm and power transfer. Shadow boxing wasn't casual movement, it was deliberate, technical rehearsal. Visualizing opponents, drilling specific sequences, making corrections. Perfecting angles. Footwork drills focused on ring cutting, creating angles, defensive positioning. The goal was mastery. Make every movement efficient, every punch effective, every defensive reaction automatic. Muscle memory built through thousands of hours. Sparring was controlled, technical, purpose-driven. Partners worked specific scenarios, testing reactions, refining adjustments. Learning to think under pressure without taking unnecessary damage. Smart preparation for longevity. The Soviet system believed that if you mastered boxing fundamentals deeply enough, you could handle any opponent. And they were right. Their boxers moved beautifully, punched precisely, controlled range elegantly. Dagestan took a different path entirely. Their foundation was wrestling. Takedowns, positional control, pressure, scrambles. This became their base skill, drilled endlessly from childhood. Wrestling was their language, their comfort zone, their weapon. Boxing came later, much later, integrated as a complementary tool, not the primary focus. When Dagestani wrestlers added striking, they approached it functionally. What works in mixed combat? What helps close distance? What keeps opponents at bay while setting up takedowns? The striking they developed was efficient but not refined like Soviet boxing. It didn't need to be. Their wrestling excellence covered the gaps. Their pressure covered mistakes. Their cardio outlasted opposition. Technical development in Dagestan emphasized depth in one area rather than breadth across multiple skills. A Dagestani fighter might have 15 years of wrestling experience and 3 years of boxing. A Soviet boxer had 15 years exclusively refining punches, footwork, defensive craft. Different fighter profiles emerged. Soviet boxers moved like artists. Dagestani fighters moved like forces of nature. Neither approach is superior. They're designed for different types of combat. Different rules, different goals. But put them in the same ring. That's where it gets interesting. The Soviet boxing system produced Olympic legends who dominated for decades. Valery Popenchenko, Boris Lagutin. Later, Vasyl Lomachenko revolutionized professional boxing with that same technical brilliance. Their influence spread globally. Coaches studied Soviet methods, fighters adopted pendulum footwork, gyms incorporated their training principles. The legacy is technical excellence, proof that science applied to combat creates consistent results. Even today, Eastern European boxers carry the Soviet DNA. The relaxed punching, the pendulum step, the lead hand control, the cold demeanor. It's embedded in the culture. Dagestan's impact came later but hit harder. Khabib Nurmagomedov retired undefeated, dominating an entire generation. Islam Makhachev followed as champion. Umar Nurmagomedov rising through ranks. The success wasn't isolated, it was systemic. Dagestan proved that fundamental wrestling excellence combined with mental durability and consistent training culture could dominate modern mixed martial arts. The world watched and wondered, what's the secret? The answer disappointed many because it's not sexy. There is no secret. It's wrestling from childhood. Daily discipline, training in harsh conditions. Family obligation, creating psychological drive. Years of repetition, building unshakable fundamentals. Both systems earned respect through results. Soviet boxers proved technical perfection creates beautiful, effective combat. Dagestani fighters proved fundamental mastery plus mental toughness creates unstoppable pressure. The difference wasn't better or worse, it was purpose. Soviet boxing was built for Olympic glory. Dagestani wrestling was built for survival and honor. Different goals, different methods, both legitimate, both effective, both worthy of study and respect. If this opened your eyes to how culture shapes fighters, hit that like button right now. Subscribe because next video breaks down how modern boxing evolved beyond both these systems, blending technical precision with unbreakable conditioning. Drop a comment. Which training philosophy resonates with you more? Soviet technical mastery or Dagestani relentless discipline? Here's the real lesson for your own training, whether you're in the gym or chasing excellence in life. Consistency beats intensity. Fundamentals beat flash. Discipline beats motivation. Every single time. The Soviet Union taught us that science creates champions. Dagestan taught us that culture creates warriors. Both lessons matter. Now stop watching videos and get back to work. Train hard, train smart, respect the process. This is Boxing Legends. Until next time,